August Sander was a German portrait and documentary photographer. He has been described as the most important German photographer of the early 20th century. Sander discovered photography at the local mine where his father worked. He helped the company photographer carry his equipment. According to his son Gunther, looking through a camera transfixed August, and not just for that instant. He spent his military service as a photographer's assistant and then went on to set up his own photography studio in Cologne. Sander did not embrace new technology. The newly invented Leica camera, he did not use it. He remained devoted to the old-fashioned large format camera, glass negatives, and long exposure times, as he felt this allowed him to capture minute details of individual faces. Most of his photos were shot against neutral backgrounds. He allowed his images and the people in them to speak for themselves. In the mid-1920s, Sander began his project, People of the 20th Century. In it, he wanted to document Germany by taking portraits of people from all segments of society. The project evolved into 7 groups: the farmer, the skilled tradesman, the woman, the classes and professions, the artists, the city, and the last people. According to Sander, the portrait is your mirror. It is you. He believed he could reveal the characteristic traits of people using photos. He used his photos to try to tell each person's story, what their profession was, what their politics were, what their social situation was, and their background. I chose one photo from each group that I believe captures the essence of his work. Each of his photos can fit into most of the categories we learned about in criticizing photography. They are descriptive as they show people in their work environment, so it allows us to know something about them. Some are explanatory as they show people's lot in life. They are all interpretive because Sanders took very direct photos and you, the viewer, get to decide what he was going for. They are aesthetically evaluative as they were the images he considered worth taking. Most are ethically evaluative in that they show different aspects of society at that time. And lastly, they are theoretical as many were destroyed due to the politics of the time. Martin Weinstein of the Weinstein Gallery declares Sanders as his favorite photographer. He says, "For me, what makes him a great photographer is the truthfulness of the portraits, the directness of the portraits. It's his attempt to not induce any type of emotion." Can't think of any photographer who influenced later generations more than Sander. I think that's his single greatest significance. Weinstein thinks that in Sanders' photograph of a painter's wife dressed in white slacks and blouse, lighting a cigarette, that it could be easily mistaken for a photograph taken by Richard Avedon. Minnesota photographer Alex Soth's work also shows Sanders' influence. Soth says, "I like it because there's nothing sneaky about it. So the subject gets to be their own person. The photographer just gets to stare and the viewer just gets to stare, and it's that simple. There's not a lot of gimmickry to it, and there's not a lot of artifice. It's just the simple description of things, which is so mysterious and fabulous." Soth even named his own son after August Sander. Sander took more than 40,000 photographs in his lifetime. Sadly, many of them were destroyed. A large number were seized and destroyed by the Nazi regime, and more were lost during a fire in his studio. Sanders' influence for me can be confirmed just by the number of articles, websites, and galleries that comment on and display his work. I was not able to consume all the information available. It seemed to be endless. However, all that I did read and review came back to the simplicity and truthfulness of his photos. In his own words, every person's story is written plainly on his face, though not everyone can read it. August Sander could read it.